All right, we can kick it off. I'm sure we'll have some people trickling in. Welcome for our third and final Keith A. Francis AHANA Outreach panel. This one is particularly, of course, regarding community and engagement. And to be honest with you, this is the one I'm most excited for. And that's because we have these four awesome panelists and the topic itself, there's a lot to dive into. I'm sure this is going to be a big piece of what university life would be like for any school. And so we're excited to give you a little window into what that's like at BC. If you haven't seen any of our two other panels, I highly encourage you to check them out. I think that we covered a lot of ground. Of course, every single panel is different just because the experiences that are brought are so different between each panelist. So definitely worth checking out. I always started it by sharing just a little bit of background as to what Keith A. Francis looks like. And typically it happens in the first weekend of April. It's a chance for 2 nights, 3 days that students come in and they get to shadow a student. You get paired with a student, typically based off of your major, where you're coming from. Myself, I come from Morristown, New Jersey, so the opportunity to take that bus from New York to BC was unlike any other. No other school for me of the ones I got accepted into did that sort of outreach for students of color. So it meant a great deal. It already told me as early as an incoming student that the kinds of things that BC valued and wanted to do to show that, there could be a place for you here at BC. So while we can't deliver that kind of weekend experience, we're going to do our best to give you what we can within this panel version online. So just like any other panel you've seen, we're going to go around. We're all going to introduce ourselves by first name. So Darnell is going to start, followed by Harry, and then Jeff and Jen. That's a close one there. And I want everybody to share where you're from, what you're studying, the school, and why you chose BC. I've kicked off every single panel doing this way just because, again, I think everyone has a very unique experience. And so Darnell, why don't you kick it off for us?
Good. My name is Darnell Phils. I'm from Palm Beach, Florida. I'm currently a sophomore right now, studying economics in the Morrissey School of Arts and Science. And I chose BC, I would say mainly because of the people. I felt like for college, I should be surrounded by the right group of people. And I felt like at BC, they showed me like what it means to like be there for others and have that like family aspect, which I really found important for my studies.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Harry Shanmugam. I'm a junior from Hopkinton, Massachusetts. I'm in the Carroll School of Management, concentrating in accounting for finance and consulting, but I'm also doing a biology double major in the College of Arts and Sciences. Why I picked BC, kind of like my perspective on this whole thing. And this was actually told to me by a dean of another school that I was considering. But basically, you want college to be like transformative, right? Like if you're the same person that you are right now, 4 years from now, then college has done you a disservice. You haven't gotten your money's worth, if you will. But you want to find the place that will make you into the person that you'll be most proud of. And so for me, they told me like picture yourself now today, and then picture yourself 4 years from now at each of the schools you're considering, and the person that you like best, go to that school. And for me, when I did that, BC won hands down. Obviously, the educational opportunities and things I'd be able to do for my career and aspiration, BC offered more than ample support for that in terms of allowing me to do whatever I wanted to. But I really thought there was something distinctive and unique about the mission at BC that really kind of played out in an everyday life in terms of meeting with people and being able to have some conversations with my peers, classmates, faculty, other professors. Just like that, I've been truly transformative, and also just engaging with social justice and issues of systemic inequities, and just thinking about things in a different way, in a different lens that I thought was very much rooted within the Jesuit tradition, and also really like the strong emphasis on reflection and introspection. I thought would help me kind of develop into a person that would be able to have the most impact in terms of leveraging my education for some kind of greater good. So kind of saw all this from my conversations with people at BC, and just kind of the sheer love that everyone had for the school. And so took the plunge 3 years ago and have loved every minute of it ever since.
What's up, everybody? My name is Jefferson. I'm a senior majoring in communications with a minor in African Diaspora Studies, all within the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. I'm from the Bronx, New York, so shout out if there's any New Yorkers in the group. My why BC story is kind of interesting, just because when I was in high school, like BC wasn't even on my radar at all. and I very much was dedicated to go to another school up until like one day I came to visit BC to see a friend, and I just like fell in love. Beautiful campus. Like, I'm first gen, so I've never really seen what college was like, never understood what the concept was. I just knew I did well in school. And so saw BC, fell in love, went to a football game, tailgating, meeting a bunch of BC students that I met and got to know while I was over my 4 years, was definitely like what led me to really think about Boston College. And I think what settled the deal for me was thinking about this Jesuit nature about BC, seeing how that's like impacted into all parts of life, whether you're religious or not. And I think like, this is a quote from an admission counselor, that Jesuit values are really just human values, really just understanding not only each other, but our place in society and what we are meant to do, what we're good at, really finding our joy and our happiness in the day-to-day. And honestly, I'm a very happy person, and that's what really led me to come here. And now I'm about to graduate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Lozano, and I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. Right now, I'm a political science and sociology double major in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. So my YBC actually starts off a bit similar to Jefferson, actually. I am from Florida with two older siblings who went to the University of Florida. And so for my entire life, I thought I was going to be a Gator as well. Thankfully, BC came onto my radar through a friend. And once I started just kind of visiting schools, I fell in love with BC and everything it had to offer. I think it's a mixture of everything that everyone has said so far. The location is absolutely amazing. Living in Orlando, I lived in the suburbs. So having the opportunity to live near a city was amazing. It's just 15 minutes away. Having a smaller size or medium-sized school was also really cool. And also I think just the fact that it brought so many people from so many different backgrounds was something that was really interesting to me. I decided against going to the University of Florida or staying in Florida because I wanted to expose myself to people with different backgrounds and different experiences. And so far, my freshman year has been amazing because of that.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for sharing your YBC. Now, the first question we got for this panel was, is there an intercultural center for AHANA students to go to? How have you engaged with this resource? Does anyone want to start?
Yeah, I could chat real quick. So in terms of an intercultural center, we have our Bowman AHANA Intercultural Center, which is the hub, our best way to summarize it. It's a place where students can go to like do homework, chill, kiki, talk, play video games. I see Darnell there like 3 times a week, and I take a nap, we chat, and we argue about like all types of stuff. And for me, I guess it's where I consider home base. Like, I can go through all my classes day by day, and if I need to take a break, see my friends, someplace to chill in between, or eat lunch, grab some snacks, like the BIC is where I go. My advisor in there, her name is Danielle, one of the best people I know at BC. I can text or call her literally at any time of the day and know that I'm gonna get a response. And it's not always just like professional help or assistance. Like, me and her talk about what's going on politically. We talk like friends, and we talk about what's going on in our personal lives and stuff like that. And really having that mentorship has just been fire.
Yeah, I can add on as well. I mean, I work at the BIC, so that's why my face is always popping up. But I mean, like for my freshman year, that was the place where like I gained like a lot more friends, helped me learn more about myself. And you also get an advisor at the office, so they really help guide you throughout your BC years, which I felt like I needed, especially because like my first like few months, like I felt lost. It really helped me become grounded and get like a clear path for like what I wanted to do as a student at Boston College.
That's a great segue. So, Darnell, thanks for being honest that you felt lost your first couple of months. For the rest of the panelists, is that how you felt as well? How did you find your community? How did you navigate those first couple months?
Yeah, I think when you kind of come to college the first time, especially transitioning from high school, it's kind of like trial by fire almost. You're kind of just tossed into it, and that's your introduction in terms of. I remember that first week of college, just being like there's just so many things always going on in the sense of in any given day you can fill your things, you can fill your schedule with any number of activities. So, you know, you have class, you also have homework and studying, but also, you know, meeting with professors or going to a club meeting or going to a comedy show or a lecture on campus. There's literally like infinite permutations of how you could schedule your day out. And I remember just being overwhelmed with kind of everything there was to do. And kind of my way of figuring out how, like, discerning what exactly it was that I wanted to do, what exactly it was I wanted to prioritize, was kind of just, it was almost kind of like handed to me by upperclassmen. I think PC has this cool like lunch date culture where people are always like trying to like get lunch or get dinner. And I remember that first week, like there was a bunch of upperclassmen who wanted to pay forward what they had gotten as freshmen, reached out to me like, oh, let's get lunch, let's get coffee, let's get dinner. And so I must have had, I don't even know how many I must have had that first week. But being able to talk to upperclassmen, see what they enjoyed about PC, what were the things that they were involved in, what were the different strategies they had for time management. I think really those conversations and having kind of that network of support from upperclassmen was essential in terms of navigating kind of the different challenges that come with college. And also I will also say finding time for making pause or for taking pauses in your day is so important, because, you know, if you're always on, it can be taxing. So would just, you know, recommend finding some time to decompress and take some time to yourself every day if you can, because that really, I think, makes a big difference in the long run.
Being that my first day at BC was just a couple of months ago, I can totally remember how nervous I was about finding my community and kind of making BC my home away from home. And honestly, I think what helped me was taking the time to go to the student involvement fair, something that happens in, I think it's the second or third week of school. All of our 300 plus clubs line up on the lawn, just are kind of shouting at you to join their club and everything. And I definitely was a bit overwhelmed, but I signed up for things that I knew I was interested from high school. And I also tried to step out of my comfort zone and sign up for things that I didn't really know much about or wasn't really involved in. And through that, I found Residence Hall Council, which is honestly something that really helped in my freshman year. So Residence Hall Council and Residence Hall Association, essentially you make a committee within your residence hall. So I lived in Keys this past year, and so I was on that residence hall as a diversity and inclusion chair. And this honestly helped a lot, not only with programming events, focusing on diversity and inclusion, which is something that was very important to me, but also just getting to meet people in my residence hall that weren't just on my floor. It helped me make a bunch of connections with people, and I found some of my best friends within my residence hall and within that organization.
Did anyone else have similar experiences when they went through the student involvement fair and getting involved? How easy was it to get involved? What was that like when you were first starting out?
I think it was very overwhelming. Like I knew I was involved in high school, but in high school it was different. I knew what I wanted to do, and I felt like it was a lot more limited things I could do. So it was easier to just pick the things I wanted to be involved in and go deep into it. I walked into the involvement fair, and it was probably one of the largest spaces I had been to in my life at that point, just because there's literally like hundreds, if not pushing thousands, of students just out there, whether they're trying to get involved or like already involved, trying to recruit. It was just overwhelming. I went with like a couple of the guys on my floor freshman year, and literally minutes in, we all got lost. Just going back and forth, meeting a bunch of people, signing up for listservs for clubs we may or may not even be really interested in. Then a week later, I felt like I was the most important person in the world. I went from 0 emails to like 150 a day from clubs, just trying to recruit, trying to get me to go to events and stuff like that. And so sort of to figure out like the things I was passionate about, I just had to trial and error, you know, go to club events, see if I vibe, go to club meetings and see if I like really like the people that I'm meeting. And then keep it going.
Could you name drop some of the clubs that you kept on your plate, Jeff, just for the crowd to hear?
Yeah. So I got involved in the student admission program, kind of deep there. Then I also got involved in student government. Went on a ton of service trips. Definitely culture clubs. I wish I could dance, but like dancing from afar. Yeah, just like a few.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a freshman rite of passage to get lost in the involvement fair and sign up for a bunch of clubs that you physically don't have the time to attend all those meetings that you signed up for. I'm sure Jen's still getting all those emails.
Yeah.
This day.
Still
Given
trying to unsubscribe.
given that this is an AHANA outreach panel, I'm curious, are you guys involved in cultural organizations? So on the surface, Jeff, you talked about it. Jen, you talked about your diversity inclusion chair. I'd love if, we all just talked about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I can start on that. So since my freshman year, I've been involved in the South Asian Student Association. And I think what's really cool about, SAS, and I think this goes for a lot of other culture clubs too, is that your involvement in that culture club can be kind of, as much as you'd like or as little as you'd like. It's still always just a family that's there for you. And so, at least for me, for SAS, I remember like that first couple weeks they had, that first week of school, that weekend, they had like a big barbecue for all like the freshmen to attend and meet all the other upperclassmen in the South Asian Student Association. And I met a lot of other students of color during that kind of initial barbecue. And then, that was when we made our first, like our SASA group chat, if you will, for all the freshmen. And then over time, that was kind of like the extent of my involvement in SASA, in the sense of like I had those friends that I made then, and those individual relationships were cultivated and meant a lot to me. But I kind of spent my time on other things in terms of the clubs that I got involved in, the way that I filled my time. But every year come February, SASA holds a culture show, like a lot of the culture clubs on campus do. And so and it's like a major rite of passage for all the freshmen in SASA, where it's like it's almost mandatory. You have to participate in this. And it's like this like 2-hour show. We sell out Rob Sham. You get to dance on stage, which is really cool. But the problem is I can't dance either. And so I remember I was like, oh, there's no way I can do this, but it was essentially kind of peer pressured into it, forced into it. And ever since, it's been, every year that I've done it, it's been one of the highlights of the year for me. It's just so much fun in terms of like the late night practices and the memories that you make alongside your friends, kind of just enjoying yourself on stage. And it's really kind of cool to see how the size of our class dance grows. So freshman year, our freshman class dance was 20 people. Sophomore year, we got it to 50 people. Or sophomore year, we got it to like 35. And this year we pushed 50 my junior year. And so it's kind of cool to see like everyone sees you like come dance. They want to join in as well. So it's a lot of fun that way, and has been a really important club for me.
Yeah, in terms of my journey, I think when I touched Boston College, I knew I was going to make friends, like friends of color. Just being very extroverted. I knew that was the vibe I wanted. So I started off like in not so like Black dominant spaces, such as like the avid listeners of Boston College, just like a music group for to kids to just like listen to music and just talk about it. And then I went to my first meeting, and it was just weird. Like my freshman year, the Life of Pablo came out right before we started senior year. We started freshman year. And so I was excited to talk about that, or like Childish Gambino's album at the time. And like, I remember no one knowing who Childish Gambino was. And I was like, yeah, no, this isn't my vibe. Then I walked into WZBC, which is like Boston College's radio station. I wanted to do a segment, like a talk show segment. Realized I couldn't talk for like an hour long without stopping. And so I became a broadcaster for athletics. And so it was great to talk about the dynamics of sports and stuff, but there was just something missing. And then I walked into literally the SAP office, the admission office, and I spoke to some students in there, and someone suggested the AHANA Outreach Committee. And I was like, okay, like I'll test this out. They made AHANA Weekend. It was a vibe when I went. And I think my first couple of meetings there were the first times, like everything was encompassing. Nothing was lacking on any ends. Like it was always real funny, good vibes. The senior at the time, she used to cook for all of our meetings. And so we would eat well too. And then just chill. We would discuss all the things, all of our programming events, all the stuff that we wanted to do. But then we would just vibe at the same time, and really made some good friends, really good connections to people who no longer attend BC, but I'd still talk to regularly. And then the people my year, that time, like some of the closest people I know now.
Darnell, how about you? Are there any student organizations that come to mind that have helped you find a community here at BC?
I guess I can name a few. So like my first year, before I came in, I was like, because I did band in high school, I had like a few conversations with my mom. It's like, oh, do I really want to continue this? But like she really pushed me, so like I could have something to like fall on when school starts. So I'm currently like in the march band right now. I've done it for 2 years. I feel like I can say like that was like my first family on campus, because we got to go to campus like a week before school started. You already like go through like band camp and everything with those group of people. So you form those relationships early. So like I had like those people, start off the school year. Of course, like some relationships fade and stuff because you know more people. Um, and currently, right now, I'm a residential assistant as well. Um, you freshmen will know what Newton is like pretty soon. um, that's where I was my freshman year, and I was an RA at my sophomore year. And for next year, like I'll have the chance to be the MLE RA and Xavier and Emily. That's just the multicultural learning experience floor, mostly aimed for AHANA students to really form a community and have that base first once they come to BC.
Let's stay on that note. I love that. So, Jen, why don't we start with you? You were the diversity and inclusion chair for your residence hall council. So, how did you find that community within residence hall? And then then afterwards, I'd love to hear from you, Darnell. Like, what do you hope for to create that community in the residence hall as the multicultural learning experience RA? So, let's start with Jen.
Yeah, of course. So my job was essentially to promote and just create awareness about diversity, inclusion, and equity. So my focus was programming just some small socials or events, whether it was just having some snacks and then have people come in and I just catch them in conversation about something or focus a theme around it. So we ended up doing like a sort of potluck of different cultures one time. And something that was really cool about my residence hall, I lived on Newton campus as well in Keys, and we had a lot of international students in my building. And I became so intrigued into what everyone's experience had been like. One of my closest friends actually was from South China, and every day I would teach him a little bit of Spanish and he would teach me a little bit of Chinese. Something we did just in the lounge, just for fun, just to get our minds off of the work we had to do. But it was just relationships like that that were really easy to build because of my involvement in RHA. But even if I wasn't involved in that, just the community aspect of it was really amazing.
And Darnell, how about you?
Um, well, I guess I lived on Keys my freshman year as well, Jen, just so you know about that. But I would say like one of the things that like even motivated me to be an RA, because I was the only Black kid on my floor freshman year, and I couldn't really like I had friends on that floor, but like we couldn't really connect with a lot of things, and like that's what I was talking about earlier was like struggling to like find that home at BC. So like when you asked what is something like I look forward to like as an RA on the MLE floor, it's like I just want to give like students just that feeling of being home right away, providing those resources right away so they don't feel lost like their first month or two or even the whole semester at BC.
Right. And Jeff, I know you lived on the multicultural learning experience like me. Could you talk a little bit about that your freshman year?
Yeah, I was gonna go into that right after Darnell, actually. For me, that made freshman year a lot easier of a transition. My year, the multicultural living experience, also known as MLE, that floor was predominantly Black students, and that was like my home base. I had friends like Omanosa, my roommate Jamal and Tair. The guys really like whenever I had a day or anyone had a long day, we'd all just come back, play 2K, and we'd talk. Our RA was real cool too. Like he'd always come hang out with us, and I think it was very different than a lot of my like peers in their freshman year experience, in the sense of where like that community was just built prior to us getting there, and so like we all just vibed with each other. Was it the start of all of my sleeping problems today? Absolutely. Just staying up till like 4 a.m. talking or laughing or just hanging out. Definitely was a great experience. I think it also has its downsides. Like because of that, it was harder for me to wake up in the morning and stuff like that.
Jeff, don't blame it on that. We know that's not true.
Sure, that is very true. Anyways, but yeah, and then going into like my sophomore and junior year, it definitely felt different. Sophomore year, I didn't live on a floor like that. Like I lived in 90 St. Thomas More. And so me and like 2 other people on my floor were the only like Black students. And it was a very different vibe. My RA wasn't as well versed as my freshman year RA was, so it was definitely a different vibe than my freshman year experience. However, it just led me to, I guess, find my community elsewhere. But knowing that freshman year, like, I always had my home base, I definitely would suggest other students applying. For Emily, if you can, if the housing form is open and stuff, to definitely do it. Especially if you like meet someone along the way. It's great to just start off with someone that you may know. But if you don't, you chilling.
Awesome. Well, Harry, why don't we start the next question with you? A question that we got from the crowd was about relationships with professors. So how have we all here in this panel found a community through mentorship, through professors, through mentors? Jeff, I know you mentioned someone from BAIC, but Harry, let's start with you.
Yeah. I think mentorship is kind of like the cornerstone of your college experience, especially when it comes to thinking about what it is that you want to do both during college and after college. And professors are such a huge component of that. One of my favorite statistics to throw around about BC, not really about BC, but about my BC experience was my first semester at BC. I had 5 professors, 5 classes, and 4 out of those 5 professors invited the entire class over to their house for Thanksgiving, which I think really just kind of just goes to show the type of relationships that professors actively seek out to have with their students. A lot of professors have kind of grown, in my 3 years here, I've kind of grown from, not only being mentors who I routinely go to for advice about what it is that I want to do at school in terms of academics, in terms of clubs to get involved in, and also outside of school in terms of like career aspirations, different, things to get involved in, internships and other opportunities. They've also become, pretty close and trusted friends and just people to talk to about really anything. There's, I think, it's not just like professors who have office hours. It's like professors who will give you their phone number and will actively reach out to have coffee with you. Being able to do that with professors who've had such a wide range of life experiences is, I think, so powerful. And being able to make those relationships, I think, really are is kind of the most important important component of my experience thus far. And that's, obviously borne out in terms of like internships and stuff that I've been given because of, for example, this past summer I spent in Mexico for 10 weeks, and I got that because one of my faculty mentors, Professor Landrigan, literally called up a friend from grad school saying, "Oh, can you take on Harry in your research lab?" But also just those connections, like spending time at barbecues and other get-togethers at professors' houses, have been kind of my most meaningful experience. Been one of my most meaningful experiences at BC.
I can go ahead. I found some mentorship actually within the student admissions program. This isn't unique just to this program or organization. It's very similar to a lot of other organizations, but personally, I found mentorship with one of the admissions officers. Her name is Cordova. Some of you might get to know her. We just basically hit it off right away. She's from Florida. I was from Florida. Her family's from Peru. My family's from Colombia. And we both ended up moving to Boston. So right off the bat, she gave me her card. She invited me to get coffee. And I was just like, okay, I guess it's nice knowing someone who is really there to care about you. And she just wanted to know about my experience in general. It wasn't for anything specific. She was taking time out of her day to get to talk to me. And that conversation and relationship has continued today. I talked to her last week. She caught up with me, and it was really nice knowing that just someone's on my side, even if it's outside of the classroom, and just wants to know how your transition is going and is just there as a mentor and someone to help you along the way.
I can add on to that too. Like Jen, like I also got real close to admission counselors. Not only my own Howard Singer, but like Paul Benito and Stephen Koo, who are all other admission counselors. I think that's sometimes I don't think it's unique, but what's special is that you may not have any real relation to a professor or faculty member whatsoever, besides a conversation you happen to have. And I think about that when I think about like my business law professor. Keep in mind, I'm not a business student at all. I have no business in the business school, but I took this class just because it was interesting. And I've heard great things about this one professor. So I walked into his office one day and I was like, Professor Wesner, I want to be in your class. And then he looks at me and he goes, call me Thomas 5 times. I'll put you in my class. And I'm like, what? Okay, I guess. But it was his way of saying that that hierarchy that exists between professor and student is not what he's trying to establish. At this point, like, we are all becoming adults and we're all becoming peers and colleagues. And so we should start feeling comfortable addressing each other as so. From then forward, he always pushed my ideas when it comes to the law and just the way I think, just because he loves to pick at my brain and I love pushback. And that really just developed a relationship to the point where, like, I'll email him random court cases that I've heard about, and I'm like, "Oh, Professor Wesner, aka Thomas, like, how do you feel about this?" And then we'll just chat. He does this thing where there's always a coffee student of the week, where he'll pick a random person who said something real interesting from the week before, and says, like, "We're getting coffee, let's make it happen." And you go and you do that, and you just really build these relationships literally out of thin air.
Wesner is an A1 professor. Beast of a man. I used to take notes in like multicolored pen, and like I'd have a color, like I'd dedicate the green color for life advice from Wesner in class, and all my notes were just green. Entire page after page of life advice. Just awesome guy.
Darnell, how about you? Round us out.
I mean, I haven't taken Wesner yet. He's on my list though for professors to have a class with. But I would say two things. First, with some like the professors on campus, they've been really great for me. I recall one story, like when this whole like shutdown thing happened. My French professor, she was like, if anyone wants to talk about stuff, like you can still come. Like I was already building like a close relationship. Don't take office hours for granted because that's where like all these relationships start. But like I was just having tea with her and we were able to talk for probably 4 hours. Like we just spent the entire afternoon just talking about life and like past experiences and everything. And just those type of relationships, they really get you far. Like even like she's my French professor. It's not like I'm focusing anything related to French. I'm just taking the class for my core requirement. But just like having those relationships, they just make you like feel more connected and like even makes you enjoy the class a lot more, knowing that you have that type of relationship with your professor. And for mentors as well, I was able to get my first mentor probably toward the end of my freshman year. It was during the AHANA. It was like alumni coming back for just to like talk about their experiences and stuff like that. And my guy Michael Gaines, he graduated around like the 70s, and we had like a similar background, similar story. Started talking a lot. We got each other's number, and like started taking me out for like meet his family, go to some barbecues during the summer, and just like through that we got really close. And he's like one of my top people I can say right now that I know.
Wow, that's awesome. A question that we got from the crowd was, what's been your favorite experience at BC? I know that's a tough question, so let it marinate, and whoever knows can kick us off.
4 years of experience. Okay, I'm stuck between two. I'm stuck between. I'll go, and I'll tell you why I'm stuck between two.
Share both of them, yeah.
Okay. So I'm stuck with AHANA Weekend my sophomore year, and then just one conversation I had with 10 guys on my floor one night for 7 hours. We all pulled an all night to have this conversation, and I think the things that's similar between these two experiences is in both of those moments, it was just pure authentic selves. And what that means is that during this AHANA Weekend experience, the committee and the students that work together to really formulate the weekend, we used to get real personal, not with each other, but just with the students that we met that weekend, to the point where like there's usually like a night where people come on main campus, they're watching movies and stuff. But instead of movies, everyone just came together and we just talked till like 1, 2 in the morning. About just what everyone's experience was that weekend, the fears students have had about going to college, the fears we have being in college, and stuff like that. And just seeing like a raw emotion in a supportive space has definitely been like one of the epitomes of BC, really. Especially since like we are in a climate where like being personal is not the best. And then similar to that experience with me and the guys on my floor, this group of Black men, we were all just talking. And I think it was just really nice to see the vulnerability in the space. We all talked about some of our personal traumas and stuff like that. And at least up until that point in my life, had never really got that vulnerable or that personal with anyone in my life, not even my family. And just to be in that moment at this time, like guys I've known for probably a month and a half, just sharing so much of myself and just feeling comfortable, wasn't something I saw to ever be possible before I came to college. And like that, having that conversation, just talking to these guys and then living with some of them in the future, just made me understand why I came to college altogether. To just learn more about myself and learn more about the world. And like I said, like it's in the air. Like everyone drinks that type of Kool-Aid at BC, where everyone wants to get vulnerable. Everyone wants to share themselves and get to know people. But I feel like this is just a different layer or a different way that exists here on campus. Like no matter where you go, you'll always know people. You'll get to know people. But I feel like the way BC students like particularly go about understanding the person is very unique, and it's just wild to think about. Like some of the conversations I had at 18 are going to be some of the conversations I'm thinking about at 25. That's just, I guess, one of my favorite moments at BC, but there's way too many.
Yeah, and to Jefferson's point, like about how it's in the air, like I was gonna say just like the same exact. My favorite experience is gonna be like some of the conversations I've had with people at BC, and I think like to that point about there being something unique in the way that BC facilitates those conversations. I think that's been born out to be so true over my 3 years, in the sense of I found that almost everyone at BC is engaged not only with the kind of the issues around them, the world around them, but also with the people around them. So basically, BC provides you a set of experiences that you can go and really fully engage in and explore and really kind of dive into. And then at BC, when you get back to campus, there's this expectation that the things that you've seen, the things that you've really engaged with, you're going to share that with other people and are going to be willing to have those difficult conversations that sometimes come out from that. And so for me, I was involved in the Pulse program, and I was volunteering. Pulse is our flagship service learning program at BC, and I was volunteering at the Suffolk County House of Corrections, so a prison, and then also at the Italian Home for Children. So this is a school for children with behavioral, quote unquote, behavioral and emotional challenges, and such a transformative experience to go out into the Boston community to really be able to engage with to be able to engage with those people, to talk to some people who have a very, very different set of life experiences, both in the present and in the past, than my own, really be kind of moved and changed by those. And then to come back to BC and to have opportunities for structured reflection about that. Almost every volunteer opportunity I can think of at BC has some component of reflection on campus. I'm also involved in For Boston, which is another service organization I volunteer at, a children's hospital nearby, and we have weekly reflections as a group, and really just having that space to kind of process and digest some of the things that you're seeing with people who have that similar inclination of kind of really tackling and delving into these issues at their nitty gritty, and really trying to inspire a collective sense of learning, if you will, has been so transformative. And 80% of people on BC's campus are involved in some form of service over their 4 years, and so when everyone has that range of exposure, that just leads to, I think, a different caliber and a different tone of conversation on campus, and that has been my most meaningful thing as a college student.
I can go ahead with mine. I know I'm still looking forward to a bunch of traditions that BC has to offer in the upcoming years, but something that really stands out to me isn't necessarily a tradition, but it was the Sunday we got back from our Thanksgiving break. It was probably the most snow I've ever seen, and it was so pretty, but I think the biggest thing about that experience was that for 3 hours, a bunch of people went outside of our dorm and we were just having snowball fights, like sledding down the hills in front of our dorm on Newton. And I felt like a kid. I was not worrying about going back to school on Monday. I was just so happy to see my friends again, and I hadn't seen them for a week, which is nothing. But it just felt so like freeing and genuine, and everyone was so excited to see each other. And the fact that I was out there for 3 hours in the snow and it was really cold and I am not used to that at all just says something about how excited everyone was to see each other. And I remember that so clearly just because it was so fun and I felt like a kid again, and that's all I could ask for. And the fact that I had that community to do that with was really amazing.
Yeah, I'll go on. I think it's hard for me to pick because I feel like I got a lot as well. I think probably my most exciting experience was my freshman year. That's when, if there are like any college football fans, that's when College Game Day came to BC. So we played against Clemson. Yeah, and since I'm in the marching band, I get like a different angle when I'm experiencing all of it. So just having like, it was just a wild weekend, I think. It's like starting like Friday when all like the TV crew came in, they put their stuff on the lawn, all the way to Saturday night. I feel like that was the most people like I've seen in the stadium, and the energy was just crazy. I mean, we did lose, but it's okay. The first half was great, and I think that was my most exciting time. Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue, Darnell. What is the social scene like? What do people do over the weekends? Anybody want to start on that? I know that's a big question for prospective students.
I can chit chat. I think in terms of the social scene, that's where you really utilize that Boston is your backyard. No matter I feel like no matter how social you are, the type of social events that you're into, you can find it. I know me personally, I love music and shows, and so like I go into the city a lot to concerts because every popping artist has to stop in Boston at some point because it's just how young the city is in terms of all the college students in the area. So I love going to like TD Garden to see shows or the Paradise Rock Club, which is near Boston College, Wonder Bar, all these other places that have like spaces for artists to come in. And I've seen so many people like Drake, Migos, Kanye. Then you're talking. I've seen SZA. I saw Lizzo. Um, I would have seen Little TJ if Corona didn't take over. But like the opportunity just to see a bunch of people is something I loved. And then in terms of like shows, I personally like comedy clubs. Cambridge, a lot of comedy clubs to go to. So going out there is pretty easy via the train. It's like a 45-minute train ride. Or if I was dedicated enough to pay for an Uber, like it's not that expensive to go into Cambridge or go into parts of Boston. Compared to New York City, Boston's a lot smaller of a city, so your dollar gets you a lot farther, in my opinion. And so it's been pretty cool to just have that. But like you can also do the things you want to do on campus, like football games, club events, and other stuff.
I'd say I did see a very active and social campus throughout my first semester and through my second semester. There's always events on and off campus. We have the campus activities board that sponsors a lot of on and off campus events. For example, they would organize trips to go apple picking in the fall. They did a sledding/skiing trip in the winter, and they would provide transportation and organize it all, etc. So that was really cool. And like Jefferson was saying, you can find a lot of the stuff in or out of the city. Like on BC's campus, we have a lot of great groups. For example, something I really loved was a comedy group at BC called My Mother's Fleabag. Fun fact, it was actually started by Amy Poehler. I have never laughed harder, and I love watching like Jimmy Fallon and all those late night comedians. But it was just so fun watching how many people would show up for those comedy groups on campus. And it was just a fun Friday night event that was really cool to go to.
Yeah, I'll go on with that. The school, I feel like every weekend there's like something you could do. So you really have no excuse to be bored. Um, this year specifically, I've been to like a bunch of like dance shows, culture shows, a lot of clubs. They have like different events going on. I mean, if there's free food, I'm gonna be there. So that's what they got going on. And during like toward the end of the year, the school does something it's called like Showdown. They have like all the dance groups that compete against each other, and it's like a great time for like everybody because they go into the basketball stadium and it's like they fill it up too. So it's like there's always something you could do if you like to turn up. You can do that as well. But also, you'll just you'll find a way. I feel like, and you'll find like something you're interested in, and there's something for everybody at BC, I believe, for your like social life.
Yeah, and you'll find your people too who'll want to do those things with you. And if we were on campus, I'd tell you guys to go to like the big staircase right next to O'Neill, because the walls of that staircase are plastered with flyers. So on any given day, you can see what exactly is going on that week, what exactly is going on that weekend. Be it a dance show, a comedy group on campus, a cappella shows. There's so many people who are doing so many cool things for other students on campus, and so really just a wealth of opportunities to to pass your time.
Awesome. Well, we're rounding the hour, so this is going to be my last question for you all. What advice would you give AHANA students regarding finding their community at BC?
Something I would say is to really use the resources that are being offered. Obviously, you may not know about some of them. That's completely fair. I didn't either. But do some research, reach out to people, professors, faculty, peers. There are so many people that are rooting for you to succeed and are there to help you throughout your transition. And so honestly, I would just say use your resources, whether it's office hours, going to the BIC, anything you can really to help that transition be as smooth as possible. It might be rough. I got really homesick and the first few weeks were really tough, but once I did step out of my comfort zone and really did research onto what resources that I could utilize to best help myself, it really helped my transition.
Yeah, I think I'd say kind of in that vein, let it come to you, in the sense of, I think a lot of times for when it comes to college, like we have a whole host of kind of preconceptions and like this idealized version and almost expectations that we have for college, right? That you project onto it, where it's like, oh, college is gonna be like my freshman year roommate's gonna be my best friend all 4 years, and then like best man at my wedding, like we're gonna be best friends our whole life. Like I want to have like this awesome social life, like every single weekend. Like you can kind of like get all these different cultural influences and kind of conflate this image of college that fundamentally like isn't possible, right? To have a uniformly perfect experience every single day. And I think, sometimes when you do that, it can be a little difficult when you come to college and you realize that your particular experience is unique to yourself. And every single person has that too, where, everyone has the highest of highs in college, but also some pretty significant lows when it comes to transition to school, and whether being homesick, or the different challenges that come with just living at school and having this level of workload and all the different social pressures that there can be. And so I think looking back at my freshman year, the advice I give to my freshman self is kind of just let it come to you. You're going to have some great days, you're going to have some days that aren't as nice, but overall, I think BC provides so many avenues of support and so many avenues for growth that it's just an overall edifying experience. And so just taking the pressure off from those expectations, if you will, I think allows yourself to become more like almost like pleasantly surprised, if you will, by the end outcome, because it's just college is an absolutely amazing ride, and it's just different for each person.
Yeah, I would add on to Harry's point, like the idea of letting it come to you when you start BC or wherever school you go to that first day. It's nerve-wracking, whether you have a couple friends from school or you don't. It's a whole different atmosphere, a whole different world. Best thing, I guess, is to, one, if you don't fully love yourself, to really get there. Once you begin to like love yourself and love who you are and be comfortable in your own skin, you'll just find like people will gravitate. Friendships will build, mentors will come around, advisors will see. Like once you begin that journey, it's just everlasting. And your sense of community doesn't always have to be in the things that are like known. Like if it's in a dance team or if it's inside of a culture group, it may be in the small niches where maybe you work somewhere and you find like these 3 people that you really just vibe with and they become your closest friends. Or you take a class and you meet someone whose mind, really captures what you want to talk about, what things you think about. Be open to meeting people in the weirdest places. There are people that I know today that I got to know in some of the weirdest places. Even as a senior, I still was meeting people day by day that I wish I would have met a long time in my BC career. But hey, it is what it is, and they came when they came. And I think this concept of finding community doesn't even stop while you're here. We've been in quarantine for like 2 months, and I've randomly gotten in contact with BC alumni who just bring you in, and just start talking and just like wanting to get to know you, wanting to build that relationship, and that just builds onto the community. Sort of corny, but like once an eagle, you're always an eagle. You're definitely just gonna have that connection, and the community doesn't really ever stop. It just keeps going and keeps growing.
My advice for students would be, first of all, don't be afraid to take risk. I've taken like a lot of risk in my 2 years at BC. And I feel like that's gotten me like very far with like my connections and the stuff that I've been able to do as well. But also to take advantage of like all the resources on campus. There are so many like offices, people to meet, and like I believe Harry said, there's a lot of people rooting for you. And like it took me a while for me to realize that, because like growing up, I always had that I can do it myself mentality. But you do get those low days, then you realize, you can't do everything yourself. So that's when I realized I do have a lot of support. I do have a lot of people rooting for me and willing to help me. So like definitely, like once you come in, know like the offices, know the people, and like take advantage of everything, because the school is pretty expensive. So use that money, worth it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sticking around with us for the entire program.